It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedback-iest day of the week. Ha! I was a little in a different key that time, wasn't I? Well, good to change it up. It is Friday, and it was kind of a slow week on YouTube, but now I'm doing double duty. I've got the website as well, lianakursner.com, and there was some interesting stuff going on over there. But first, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping on the YouTube, let you guys know what's going on. I am about, well, as I'm recording this, 11 subscribers away from 11,000 subscribers. Yay! I know that's relatively small on YouTube, but it's substantial enough to say I have an audience. So that is cool, and thank you. And if you're listening to this and haven't subscribed, why not? Be part of a large but exclusive club. How does a large but exclusive club work, you ask? Join the YouTube channel, subscribe. The other thing I want to let you guys know about is that I am only, $85 a month away from my first goal of $1,000 a month on Patreon. The funny thing is it's about intros and outros and editing. And I'm already kind of doing that. But sometimes, not always, that's low-key barking. But $1,000 is $1,000 a month is awesome. It's a really good start. Obviously, it doesn't cover all my bills, but I don't know. It's honest money, right? I'm not taking any money from advertisers to say good things about their product. Not that I do that anyway, but my goal is to get advertisers whose products I actually already like, which solves the problem. I can endorse it, honestly, because I enjoy the product. But it's actually been pretty cool. It's been really stress-free writing game reviews just for myself and doing videos just for myself. And I haven't done that since I was 19 years old. I started working full-time in television at 19. And I haven't done anything just for me. Well, and it's for you guys, of course. Like, I'm not just farting around. It's not masturbatory. But, I don't have a boss, for lack of a better term, except you guys. And this brings me to sort of the state of gaming. And I realized doing the blog that some of the visually impaired people, I don't know if they're able to access the thing I did on Allison Rapp and Nintendo and the study on, well, Time reported it as a study about sexist games, but it really wasn't. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm just going to do a quick recap of the two blog things for the week. For people who are visually impaired or have trouble reading because of dyslexia and things like that, and don't have, what do they call it, narrator on Windows? Don't have narrator. So I'm just going to go over it really quickly. I did a blog on my thoughts because people kept asking me about it on Twitter. And, tweets just disappear. They're like Kleenex. So people would ask me, we'd have a discussion. A few days later, people would ask me again. We'd have a discussion. And then 6 hours later, people would ask me again. I mean, that's the nature of Twitter, right? But my thoughts on it are basically this. And I'm not going to summarize it. Well, yes, I should. This story is about a former PR rep for Nintendo, got fired. The official reason was moonlighting. Some people have accused Nintendo of lying. I've talked about this before. Nintendo doesn't lie in this way. They say nothing. If they don't want to say anything, it's the nature of the company. It's the nature of Japanese companies. It's a cultural thing. They lie differently than Westerners do. So, is it possible that the official reason was moonlighting, but they would have looked the other way if it wasn't? Allegedly, probably prostitution. That's possible. But the reality is there's a difference between an employer not liking something and not liking something they can fire you for, right? So even if it's, moonlighting with vengeance, it's still the truth that she was fired for moonlighting. It's just not the whole truth. Possibly. I'm not willing to speculate on that because it really doesn't matter. And that's what I talked about in the article, that entertainment gigs are usually at will. A TV show's a classic example. You are signed for 1 season, 2 seasons, whatever your contract is. But if the show gets canceled, obviously you don't work the rest of your contract. You know, you don't sit on your butt collecting money. It's at will, based on the health of the show. And, you know, even if the show's doing well, if there's a format change at the station or at the network, you're gone. And that's just it. There is no job security. None. The most ironclad contract is not ironclad in entertainment. And that's something that you have to accept going in. The unique element of this was the Gamergate ruined my life accusation. And I went through, you know, in detail why I don't buy that. I don't want to necessarily get into it here. Part of the reason I put this on the blog is there are some people who like to camp on my YouTube channel and take every word I say and try to twist it. And so I wanted to be able to write it down so that there was no question. It's right there. You know, it's right in black and white. There's no question. I don't misspeak because I'm doing it off the cuff. I didn't want to do that. It is there, but it's not important to the core of what I wanted to talk about, which is the thing that really concerns me, big picture, because one person losing their job is between them and their employer, right? And their next employer. Because getting fired with cause, that's something you have to explain to your next employer and make a pretty compelling case that you've learned from that experience. And people can learn. I really believe that. But what concerns me is the complete freak out that ensued because it was sex work. And you guys know on this channel, this is something that means a lot to me. It's something that I'm very concerned about and very passionate about. And so I see sex workers as people instead of statistics or background decoration. And the problem is that the paradigm in video games right now is that sex workers are background decoration. And that is leading to some pretty, well, the word is apt right now. It's leading to some toxic thinking. And this toxic phrasing gets thrown around a lot, usually inaccurately, but in this case it actually is accurate. It's actually causing a sickness in people's thinking because it's, you know, some people feel the need to leap to this one person's defense because they know her, she's on the quote unquote right side, but a lot of people backed off in the defenses when they found out what the moonlighting job is. And the one argument I will accept is it's illegal, and, you know, whether I agree with it or not, it's illegal. I don't condone people doing illegal activity. Fine. If that's your position, that's 100% fair. You know, I don't quite come down on that side. I think we have to really examine why sex work is illegal and legal some places and not legal other places. But that is a fair perspective. The other people who just, it's too political a hot button because it seems like all of gaming is afraid of boobs and vaginas right now. That's the part that has me really concerned. And as I said to a few people, I don't remember if I said it in the article, but I said to a few people that it concerns me that there is a lack of leadership in the industry. The industry has a lot of brands. The video game industry does not have very many leaders because the video game industry has a habit of kicking the crap out of people in leadership roles. They build people up to tear them down. And I mean, there's a lot of developers that I really respect and I think they've done amazing things. But they don't bother getting involved in, the melee that goes on these issues, because they're responsible for the jobs of, God, sometimes hundreds of people, right, on a project. And it's priorities. They're not going to get involved in a social issue that could possibly jeopardize the livelihoods of their staff. The thing is, in an artistic community that actually values the principle of free speech, they should not have to worry that people are going to punish a product for the opinions of the person at the head of the product. Like, if it's a small indie game and it's the one person and you really disagree with it, and so you're not gonna buy the game, that's your money. You can do what you want. But I really think that a team of even 45 people, one person says something stupid, you shouldn't punish the whole team for that. One person does a bad thing, you shouldn't punish the whole team for that. It has really probably nothing to do with the rest of the people that worked very hard for years on that product. But gaming is so punitive. And I keep getting reminded of it. I do something about a scandal. It gets 4 or 5 times the traffic than if I do something on the resolution to that scandal. And I mean, that's not just true of gaming. That's news in a nutshell. But that's negative thinking. That's not solutions-driven thinking. That is scandal. It's not clickbait, but it's, if it bleeds, it leads, right? And I don't want to exist on a paradigm like that. So I have some challenges ahead in terms of my own personal brand, because I will not chase scandals. If something is important to me and I feel like I can add something, like I could in this Nintendo scandal, because obviously, women's issues and specifically the issues facing women in gaming is something I have unique expertise on. I'm able to speak on those issues. I wish I could do more on other inclusivity issues. I'm just very hesitant to talk about issues of race because I am a white person. If someone would like to come on and talk about issues of race as somebody who is not white, please send me a message. I should get a contact form on the website. That's something I'll do, because yes, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to get informed perspectives based on lived experience as well as knowledge. I just don't think I'm the right person to charge in that way, because it's different, right? If someone and this is a difficult thing to explain, but I'm going to try, obviously. It's not, anybody can be offended, right, about something that can possibly offend a marginalized group or marginalized people. Let's stop thinking herd mentality. Let's think of it as individuals. But when it comes to it didn't bother me, that's when you have to be careful with these identity politics pitfalls, right? Because for a guy to say something about women's issues didn't bother them, well, that's just looking for trouble, isn't it? And it's the same thing about race. Growing up in a very multicultural neighborhood that also was affected by poverty, I have a partial lived experience there, but I am acutely aware that I can go out in, the big bad world and nobody knows where I grew up unless I tell them. And part of the reason I am so open about where I grew up is because of that. It's this whole thing about passing. And a Black person who grew up where I grew up, no matter how nice they dress, no matter how eloquently they speak, no matter, how they try to blend in, they are still a Black person, and that's meaningful. And that's why I'd like to do, interviews and collaborations and things like that with people from different communities, because those stories are important. And part of the thing I do on this channel is I'm trying to collect these stories, because I have a ton of stories of my own to tell, but I want to be able to help other people tell their stories as well. I'm a storyteller, and people I don't think realize that about me. The reality of being a scriptwriter is you can't control whether that script you wrote gets made or not. So I've got a lot of scripts collecting dust. But I'm really concerned that there is very real sexism that has descended on gaming in the last couple years, and what happened to Allison Rapp and the ensuing fallout from the scandal, the OMG prostitution scandal. It's one thing for Nintendo to say you violated your contract, you're fired. That's one thing. It's another thing that she will never be able to get a job again. And I know what that feels like, because back in the day, I developed a children's show. And I was basically told by people, you will never, ever, ever, ever be able to be the face of a children's show, not with Anne and Red's Night Party in your background. And I'm like, why? What child will have seen that show? Well, it's not the child, it's the parents. And it's like this scarlet letter in the modern day. And that's stupid, but I know it's real. And so I really feel for Allison Rapp, even though she's blocked me because she uses the block bot. But I feel for her because I know what's in front of her now. And it's not fair. And we need to do better in gaming, because it's one thing when you're actively doing it, that is moonlighting. You shouldn't be holding two jobs at the same time. But even if she quits now, that's always going to be public record. I mean, hell, I didn't even do that stuff, and people embroider my personal history, and people believe it. For some odd reason, the minute you take some, Maxim style photos for work, people are willing to believe you're a stripper. People are willing to believe you were a prostitute, all this crazy stuff. And the only thing that kind of saved me was because I was so open about it, that people said, well, now if you did do that, we're pretty sure you would have told us. And my question is, I get the knee jerk, but if we really drill down, why does a parent care what a person did who's working with their children, what they did in their past? Why doesn't it matter what this person does and who this person is now? Because that fear of sex is part of the same, people say Judeo-Christian ethic, but as somebody on the Judeo side of that equation, no, it's a Puritan ethic. But that same spirit of Christianity believes in forgiveness and second chances. People should be able to get on with their lives and get beyond that, and right now they can't. And that's really disturbing to me. It's doubly disturbing that this is happening in gaming, which is already a stigmatized industry. We should be experts on stigma. We should understand acutely people, coming for us on violence, on sexism, and it's all disproven, but it doesn't matter. It just keeps coming. Why are we shutting people out when we know how wrong that sort of thinking is? I don't get it. I just know it's so. And if you want to look at the number one issue facing women in video games right now, it's this. And, this comes not only from this situation with Allison Rapp, it also comes from private conversations I've had with people who have asked me, please, 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 this is not for public consumption. And I absolutely respect that. But I'm hearing a lot of stories about, companies flying the flag, yay, women in gaming. And then when they get that job and they get in the company and, hey, they check that box, then the company wants them to be invisible. They want them to be a non-entity because they don't want trouble. Because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in women in gaming. And it's precisely the activists that claim to advocate for women that have put us in this position. And this is a harder terrain to navigate. This be nothing, be invisible. It's the same thinking behind a size 0 believe it or not. Take up no space, make no sound, be not even seen, never mind heard. Cover up, be modest, don't have anything sticking out, take up as little space and draw as little attention to yourself as possible. These are deeply sexist attitudes regarding women, and they're more of a problem for women in creative fields who have to get the job done and have to stand up and make noise and be noticed and take up space and make sounds in meetings and in companies and in the creative process. This is a bigger problem for us than boobies. Another woman's breast does not hurt me. Sit down, shut up hurts me. And it hurts every woman in this industry. But this is where we get back to leaders. EA is more than happy to go to bat for gay and lesbian people, even though they think, there are some fundamentalists who think that gay sex is dirty and sinful and all that stuff, but they're willing to go to bat for that. But feminine sexuality, no one wants to defend. Think about that. The video game industry is willing to go to bat for 10% of the population, but not 50% of the population. That is crazy. And then people say, well, not all women want to be depicted that way. The entire point is that we are advocating for the right for women to be depicted in the arts any way they want, not just in specific and select ways. Because you know what? Gay people were accepted in specific ways as long as it was a sort of Pee Wee Herman asexual sort of thing. Sort of childlike and asexual, non-threatening. The minute a gay person started existing below the waist on media, whoa, now we got a problem. Gay sex, what is that? So you had a bunch of characters who were able to just go, I'm gay, but it was meaningless. You never saw it. You were never confronted with it. It was just sort of, I like chocolate milk. It was just as meaningful. So what? Being gay is not just a statement. It's guys kissing guys and women kissing women and people doing more than that. And it's crazy that video games are willing to fight for that type of creative expression. They are willing to alienate a portion of the consumer base for that. But cleavage, the thing that women naturally have, and a lot more women naturally have that than don't, yes, there are small busted women. But considering the average size of a woman in the United States is between a 12 and a 14, there's a lot more cleavage than not walking around. So this affects a lot more people, and the video game industry isn't prepared to defend it. That's bonkers to me. That healthy female sexuality, the video game industry is willing to say, yes, we acknowledge that is dirty, overt female sexuality. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. All this think of the children stuff, that's crazy to me. Female sexuality should be handled in the exact same way that gay sexuality is being handled in games. That this is my story, this is the story I want to tell. We'll label it appropriately in terms of age group. If it's rated M for mature, don't complain to me if your kid gets a hold of it and you don't like it because you're the parent. You're the ones that are supposed to be making purchasing decisions for your child until they become 18. It's clearly labeled. That should be the end of it. But we don't have that. It's complete doublethink. Complete doublethink. And that ties into this study. This is the last thing I want to touch on. I didn't expect to spend so much time on that, but it ended up being more complicated than I expected. This thing about this study, I think this is a non-issue, the thing in time, so I'm going to be very brief on it. I just want to cover it because, like I said, it's in writing, and I want to do a little bit of audio for people who, have issues with reading. An Italian study used Grand Theft Auto, Half-Life, and a pinball game to test masculine stereotypical attitudes and empathy. That's what it did. If you actually read the paper, not the Time magazine, but the actual abstract from the paper, and there is a hyperlink to both from my blog article, The study itself is talking about identifications with masculine stereotypes connected to a lack of empathy, not necessarily Grand Theft Auto itself. And that's the important thing that Time did not get from it. That if you read the actual abstract, and the fact that it's in Italy and it's Italian high schoolers, you know, is telling, because Italy's got some unique challenges when it comes to gender relations. I mean, they had a prime minister who gave his mistresses government jobs. I mentioned that in the article. But it's getting really frustrating that places like Time don't vet, because this is all freelance writing, right? This is opinion. They file it under opinion, even though they're using studies. And because it's opinion, there's no real requirement to get it right. It's not like if it was hard news and they'd have to issue a correction for mischaracterizing this study. And that's very frustrating, but the breakdown is there, and some information about adolescent development if you're interested. But I did want to touch on it again for people who have issues with reading for various reasons. Okay, so have a good weekend. I'll be back on Monday with Mountain Monday. Have a good weekend from Momo. He's right here. He's been crawling all over me the whole time.